on every 5 to 6 years we transition away from a project. And I would just really encourage you not to even have that in your head. Because I think, unfortunately, there are some projects that just shouldn't probably have gone away, and that's my biased opinion, but it's my opinion. And I think we just got in our head like, well, it's time to go. We've been doing this for 5 to 7 years, and so I think just really look at how well the project is doing. What is our relationship with the community organizations that we're partnering with? Is the league still interested in it? Are we still getting volunteers? Are we still having a good time? Are we still making an impact? Because I think along with that, helping some of the current projects, and this may be your role, it may be that committee's role, but helping them figure out how to continually talk about this to our league members. It's I'm going to say it's my biased opinion that Books for Kids kind of started to decline, partially because we quit talking about it within the league. It wasn't any longer the fun, new, sexy project that we were working on, and so I think that we just kind of lost our drive for it. And partially because we thought, okay, it's 5 to 7 years, we need to wrap this up. Now, maybe it should have transitioned regardless, but I think it was just more around the attitude and just kind of like people were just like, okay, what's the next thing? So any way that you can find ways for the current projects to communicate to the league the impact that they're still having. And it's not just about we've got this big, great event going on or we have these volunteer shifts available. It's how is this making an impact to the kids that are being affected or to the families that are being affected. And I think the more that we can talk about it, the more people continue to be excited about it. That would be kind of my first opinion about that.
Yeah, I was going to sort of second that. Between the Lines is obviously one of those that not everybody gets to participate in. And if we get to do military events, they always try and use members at large instead of the committee because it is such a great project. But if the league isn't talking about it, if our committee isn't talking about it, it does get forgotten. And I actually heard some chairs last year, somebody from Project Development, I don't know who it was, probably you, said, a chair said, I really wish we could do this, this, and this with our project. And I'm sure it was you. And she went, that's what we're here for. Tell us what you want to do. Tell us where you're looking to go with this and let us help you. We can do that. That's what we're here for. And you could see the room and the light bulb. I don't know that I knew that when I chaired for 2 years. Getting into the military was, it was about a 2.5 year process to get in. Project Development probably could have helped us cut that in half. So we didn't know that, but we have Kids in the Kitchen and we have Backpack Buddies, and if there's, sometimes you want to get bigger, but you're too busy. And it's nice to know that you guys are there because you also hear the feedback from people. Are people complaining about their shifts? You're out there and we all know different people. Are people liking it? Are people participating in it? Are people talking about it, wanting to do it? You guys can get that feel as well. And you'd be the one to come back and go, yeah, we don't need to add 6 more schools to Backpack Buddies. We're good right now. That's what I think that chairs could really look to you guys for.
And so Michelle makes a great point. And historically, this committee hasn't really been active in the current projects. We've kind of always handed off the projects, wiped our hands clean, and moved on to the next thing. And really, that burden has always fallen on the current chairs. So something that we are doing different is if you're on the new projects and partnerships or the current projects subcommittees, it will be hands-on with that. We're going to do some surveys with membership, with our community partners to say what's working, what's not working, and then with research backup, be able to provide direction and recommendation on how we see those projects continuing to evolve over time. So that is something that is new territory for us, and it should be an exciting way to keep things fresh and in the know.
Does the board ultimately decide if the project goes away or if it doesn't go away?
No, all projects are voted on in March. Every project, whether it's a new project or
by membership.
Yep, by membership in the March meeting. So that March meeting is always a voting meeting where we vote on our projects, and we also will vote on fundraisers.
Now, with that said, it goes to the board first to put on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's ultimately always voted in by the members.
Because it sounds like from you guys that there were projects that you were passionate about, and just looking at the league and the turnover within the league. There's a lot of people that have never even heard of these
Yeah.
projects before, and if they were successful at one time, why not try to revive them? Because it's fresh new people and everybody has like a whole new look. I feel like there's so many times where we try to reinvent the wheel and come up with this new exciting thing, when really it's right in front of us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's a really good point. I think one of the keys to this group is to keep a pulse, as Christina was saying, on what the membership really cares about. Because, are they tired of sitting in a warehouse? I think that was the perception with Books for Kids, and it's the perception now with Backpack Buddies. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe it is, but the survey work that you do is really important in getting it back to those chairs so that they can start thinking, well, how do I design this program differently? Because it may just be, to Karen's point, getting that committee out in the community more. I mean, so helping them to sort of feedback there. I
And
think it's
making
really
it more
important.
than, if it is, oh, people don't want to do X kind of shift anymore.
Why?
Then do you change what's going on in a shift, or do you change how the members are getting involved in certain projects so that they can see different elements of it? Yeah.
And is it the strategic portfolio of the shifts? Because sometimes there's a big group of people that are really passionate about a certain project and want to do a certain kind of shift. But if there's no other shifts available, then you have to think about how sort of you have the balance of the different things to do for the memberships. But I say that with the flip side being, we also always need to think about what the community really needs. Because, so Smart Sense is a great example of that. It was a really powerful program, and we had a really good niche with Common Bond, which is an organization based in St. Paul, Minneapolis, that does residential housing. And we were pretty effective with them, but in general, the idea of the program was for us to do financial literacy training that we were using Wells Fargo curriculum broadly. And what we found is there really wasn't a need anymore because the Girl Scouts were doing it, and the Big Brothers Big Sisters were doing it. And so we were just this additional group coming in. And I think we lost track of what was the community really interested in. And in the end, we might have been able to reinvigorate that program by going and focusing just on the Muslim community in the Twin Cities, but that sort of need happened towards the end of the program, so I think we had already gone down the road of saying we're going to sunset this program. But it's a perfect example of just not understanding what the community's gaps were early on.
Somebody keep track of why we started the program and why we ended it, or is this just something that it just kind of goes by word of mouth, everyone kind of remembers one thing versus another thing?
Ideally, although the question how good we were at it, the vice presidents of the different areas, so the VP projects and the VP communities, keep records of that, and we also keep lists of all of our community partners, and so as we do transitions, those get passed down. But you do always lose some of that. Our sustainers are a great resource for that matter. So they're in the league for 8-9 years. They moved to sustainer status. Many of them serve as advisors to the committee, and they've got all this great institutional knowledge as to what worked, what didn't, why.
So we actually have 3 sustainers on our committee. Virginia, who came to our first meeting, and I think at our last meeting too, she wasn't able to make it tonight. And then since our last July meeting, we've had 2 other sustainers raise their hand and say, hey, I'm really interested and passionate in this topic, and I want to be involved. So we're going to have a nice, well-rounded out sustainer rep group.
I have a question that's a little off topic, but so if it's new to project development to be known or to elicit feedback from the league, does the league know that yet?
So it's not new for us to own surveys. We've done surveys in the past. It's more consulting on the direction of current projects and not always focusing on new. So we've talked a lot about it at the CMB level, so with all the community chairs. So I've been kind of going out and advertising that and making the pitch. One of the things that I'd like to recommend that the current and the new subcommittee members do is actually have a sit-down conversation with both current and previous chairs, as many people as we can get, right? To hear directly from them, what are your struggles? So we've heard a lot about, how projects have been successful, but there's also kind of the dark or the ugly side as well of, well, I spent 40 hours that week trying to figure out how to make this happen, and here's why I spent 40 hours. So we want to hear, both sides of the coin. So that's new. So I'm doing the pitch for that.
Because I almost wonder, it sounds really simple, but even I don't even know if we can do this, but almost change the name of the group, because project development in and of itself just sounds like you're trying to launch new projects. I don't know if there is some sort of like rebranding of the group and whether or not that matters, but it matters in everyday life situations. But if it's, you know, project development and, I don't know,
Just support.
yeah, or, you know, fostering project, or project fostering group. We could have a little brainstorm.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, it's just, that just came to my mind. I thought if the group is positioned as something that supports both ends of the coin, we might need to get more feedback.
Yeah, I love it. I love that idea. That's something we can explore further.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have a question. Sorry, my voice. The examples that you talked about for like the books for kids, I feel like that's really easy and tangible. Numbers were easy to kind of set as a goal. And I feel like some of our new projects are more maybe like the financial literacy program, where you're thinking about kind of more like a mentorship, helping them grow and learn about something. I'm on the Right to Thrive. So can you talk a little bit more about the financial literacy program and more about like logistics and how that worked and what was the process, how did members play a role in that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So Smart Sense was started back, probably back in like 2002, 2003. And at the time, the idea was that we wanted to work with kids on understanding budgeting and checkbooks and how do you make a budget, how do you think through a financial plan. And what we did is we worked with Wells Fargo, had developed a curriculum for middle school and high school kids. So we actually learned to use their curriculum. And what we did was we reached out to potential partner organizations. So I can kind of talk about it midstream because that's when I got involved with it. But we all sat down as a committee and said, okay, who should we, our target audience are these sort of middle school kids, what groups should we work with? And so we brainstormed and started reaching out to schools and reaching out to organizations that had children that might be good targets for our training. And that was one of the things that was a challenge for it. So from a logistics standpoint, we would reach out, we would make a connection with the recipient org that was interested in doing it. From Smart Sense, it started off when I was a member, we would just do a one training. And then the second year, we had 2 touch points. And so we would come in and we would do an hour-long training. We usually brought pizza. It was very interactive and fun. We had all sorts of worksheets and curriculum that we stole from Wells Fargo and used generously. We didn't steal. They wanted us to steal it. But so it was a matter of sort of scheduling and doing these one-off events. And part of the reason why we ended up sunsetting Smart Sense is because the chairs and the committees were really struggling to find people who wanted them to come. And they're like, we have this program, it's great when we do it, but we were hearing a lot, we've got a group that does that, or we've got our own program. And so it really wasn't until the end that we found this gap with the Muslim community, with those students, because they were immediately turned off by traditional financial training. So we were able to, by working with Common Bond and understanding with their staff what they were trying to do with the students, we then evolved the Wells Fargo curriculum to be something that targeted that specific population. And I think that's a great example of figuring out what the community really needed, which was they didn't need us to be teaching at Boys and Girls Clubs because they already had their own programs there. What they needed was this certain population that really wasn't getting the help that it wanted. So I don't know if I answered your logistics question, but really similar to Kids in the Kitchen. Yeah, we just... Yeah.
Was it just for young kids, or when you did the Muslims?
It was middle school.
Middle school stuff.
But we actually would get some kids that would come in that were in high school. Sometimes they would be like the counselors in training kind of thing. There might be high school kids that were watching the younger kids. And it was interesting because oftentimes they were the ones who were most engaged in it because they were thinking about trying to go to college and thinking about these things. So, but our scope was really more middle school kids.
Okay, so this may be a really, really dumb